Hi, Zach. I'm Matt from AndersonVision. Um,
Hey.
uh, so going into this series, you're playing a very interesting sort of character. Um, how are you approached for this role, and what drew you to it?
Well, initially I got my team called me and they're like, "Hey, you just got offered a role as the unsub on Criminal Minds." I'm like, "Oh, cool." They're like, "We have the script," and I read it. It's just the first script. I'm like, "I don't even talk." They're like, "Yeah, the producers want to Zoom with you and kind of explain the role because now it's Paramount Plus and they're doing it different." And I was like, "All right." So I got on with them and they kind of laid out this character for me, and it sounded so awesome. And I wasn't aware that now on Paramount Plus they're doing it different. It's one 10-episode season as opposed to 22, and they're like, and we want one unsub for the whole season, and we're gonna do something we've never done before and go home with him and get to know who he is in the real world. And this is kind of his origin story, and this is the arc we see him having. I was like, this is an amazing character. And they're like, yeah, we're really excited about it. We've loved the show for 15 years, but now with this revival, we kind of have a chance to kind of mix it up a little and still do the characters and the things we love, but do them in a slightly more elevated way. And I was like, I'd love to be a part of that. And it's been such an awesome job. Everyone, it's just such an amazing set.
Thank you.
Next,
Mhm.
next up from the Down and Nerdy podcast, this is James Witham.
Zach, good to talk to you today. Appreciate you taking the time to do this. You
Yeah.
played a wide range, man, of characters in your career, but this one might be arguably your darkest yet. So, how do you get in a headspace to play a guy like Elias?
It's definitely the darkest character I've done, but I think I'm just the kind of actor where they yell action and I know my lines and I'm in the scene. I mean, I had an acting professor and he was like, all acting is know your lines, know your blocking, and don't bump into the furniture. And I've kind of like taken that to heart. And it is when you get in the scene, the writing is so good that if you're saying those lines and you know who the character is, you just kind of click into that headspace. And um, the directors have been amazing, giving me notes that kind of, deepen the character and make us all, we're all finding out who he is as we go along. But, if you're in like a shipping container killing someone, it's just dark. You don't need to get like, it just is what it is. And you're in that headspace pretty quick.
Thank you, Zach.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Brett Allen from the Brett Allen Show.
Hey, Zach, pleasure to meet you. Brett Allen from the
Yeah.
Brett Allen Show. Piggybacking on some of these other questions, you have played a lot of interesting characters. Again, this one I find being very intriguing, having seen just a couple of the episodes. I'm very curious, how do you move from one character to another like this and shed the skin, so to speak, to get into that headspace of really playing something different and unique?
Yeah. I think, again, it's kind of on the page. It's in the shoes, literally. I mean, you put on the wardrobe, you're on the set. I've gotten over it, but I used to always say I hated working on a stage. I love working in like real life things because it's not a set. And it's so easier to pretend you're in a crappy house if you're actually in a crappy house, rather than like you can see the scaffolding above you. Um, and I also have been very lucky, like shifting from thing to thing. I'm pretty good at leaving work at work. And I've had stints in my life where I actually was lucky enough to be working on like 3 shows at once. So I had to figure out how to like be like, I'm doing this show today, that show tomorrow, and this is the character. It's just, to me, it's just kind of a hard hat lunch pail sort of thing where it's going to work. It's my craft, and I figured out how to do it. Luckily, because I know a lot of people bring it home with them, and that sounds hard. It sounds like it only makes the job harder.
Wow. Thank you so much, Zach.
Yeah.
Next up from Time Warner Entertainment, this is Monica Gleiberman.
Hey, Zach, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. So, obviously, I have seen you play darker or heading towards darker roles, Midnight Mass, Midnight Club, but your characters are always still good guys overall, but good guys. For this character, obviously, much darker, next level. So, I wanted to ask you, in terms of judgment, how do you, when you're reading it, although it's there for you and like wardrobe and all that stuff is there, how do you take your judgment out of this character to make him realistic and three-dimensional?
I think it's I think I'm rooting for every character I play. Like I kind of am going, my wife said to me, she's like, oh, I know what you're gonna do. You're gonna try and make everyone like you, even though you're the serial killer. And I was like, yeah. Because it's me. And like if it were me, like I don't like if I'm serial killing, it's because there's clearly something wrong with me. It's not my fault. And like I want the audience to feel it's not my fault and they're rooting for me. So but the writing really has done that. It's so interesting. I think getting to go home with Voight and see who he is in the human world and not the monster world is really going to kind of be confusing for the audience, because in those scenes you see this guy that I think you're going to kind of root for, and you're going to lose track of the fact that we were just watching him murder someone or whatever he was doing. And that's going to be, I know it's been fun for the writers. It's been really fun for me to play. And I've had scenes where, you know, they'll yell cut and the director will come over and be like, oh my God, I felt so bad for you. And I'm like, no, he's a serial killer.
All right, we're going to
Well,
go
you
back.
do a great job. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, we're going to go back to Matt for another question, please.
What was the most, out of all the episodes this season, what was the most memorable or challenging of the ones that you had to shoot either on the shooting day or just trying to come up with something for the character?
Yeah. Well, I'm not really allowed to say what happens in them, but there is an episode 7 and 8. Towards the end, these episodes start getting really hard, because it gets, my two worlds start colliding, and as the person playing this character and whatever like connections to my life I have that I've not brought to it, but it just sort of they've been emotionally like kind of hard, and I think it's just because shit's hitting the fan. And I'm in that space of like, oh my God, if I was a serial killer and I was on the verge of getting caught, I would be spiraling out of control and just terror. So yeah, some of those days have been kind of exhausting.
James, do you have another question?
Yes.
Mhm.
So Zach, you're joining a show where a lot of the people on the show have been doing it for like 13 years, 15 years plus. You're joining a group that's been together for a long time. Even as the antagonist, what's it like being the guy that jumps in to an environment like that?
It's, going in, it was a little like nerve wracking, but like day one, it was so not a thing. And there's a couple factors. They're the nicest cast and writers I've ever met in my life. I mean, they brought me cookies. Some people stayed after work just to introduce themselves to me. And then the second thing is because they're kind of rebooting, reviving the show, they want it to be a little different. So everyone's like, it's a new show. It's not the same. And most of the crew is actually new. So they're not like, oh, we've all been doing this forever. And because I'm so isolated as the unsub, I'm usually the only person on set, or I'm working with, a victim or something. And so it feels like, oh, this is my show. Like, even though I'm low man on the totem pole, it's like, I'm kind of number one on the call sheet right now. And it let me build my confidence, and everyone's been so complimentary that I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I'm doing okay.
You're definitely far from low, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, everybody. This concludes this roundtable. I want to thank you all for coming. Please have a quick goodbye and press the red end button at the bottom of your screen.
Thank you, Zach.
Jean,
Pleasure
please
meeting
cut.
you.
Zach.
Thank y'all
Thank
so
you,
much. It was so
everybody.
nice to talk to you.